Alright, and welcome back to the YouTube channel. 3-2 day. Nicole's was kind of a back and forth game pretty much the entire time. They end up coming back and closing it out, winning by 7 outright. South Alabama, I don't even want to talk about that game. They just looked absolutely dead in the water. I'm pretty sure they never had a lead that game. If they did, it was only early on. They end up losing the game outright by 11. They just didn't show up. They are one of the most inconsistent teams in college basketball. You really don't know what you're going to get because they're really not a great shooting team, but they get a lot of points off steals, and they just weren't getting – they were turning the ball over more than their opponents, so just a bad side by me. Incarnate Word, domination from pretty much the entire game. That was probably the easiest game of the day. USC, man, I really like this spot for them. They've kind of dominated this matchup when they're playing on their home court. They were kind of never really winning this game. They're slightly behind for the first 35 minutes. They managed to get the game tied up with 3 minutes left, and then their offense just went quiet after UCLA hit a 3, and then it was just a back and forth missed foul game until USC ended up losing by 6. So tough one. Oh man, Arizona. I was watching that game live. Oh, I'm pretty sure anyone that had Arizona thought that bet was completely dead. But then they just come out of nowhere, hitting a three-quarter, half-court shot to tie it, bring it to OT, and then end up winning by 11 in OT. Absolutely amazing game. I was probably on the wrong side, realistically, on that one. But we did get incredible line value. I think Arizona ended up closing it -3 favorites. I think I had the right side. We ended up winning 3-2. We take the W's where we can. Let's move on to the games that I like for today. Alright, moving into the first game that I really like today. This is going to be Seton Hall at home as 4-point dogs. Now, if you've been following this channel for a bit now, you realize that I typically fade the shit out of Seton Hall. And I love to do that because they are an awful team. They are super mid, as I like to say. In the Big East, they play against a lot of significantly better teams. They probably shouldn't be in this conference at this point. It's just kind of embarrassing, but this is a situational matchup that I really like for Seton Hall. On paper, Providence is the better team. They're going to shoot the ball better. They're going to defend better. But this Providence team just had the biggest game of their season. They went into Georgetown came into their court, and they absolutely crushed them by 10. This is kind of like their, I don't know, some people might say their Super Bowl, as Van de Bosch might say, but I kind of agree. I think they just came off a massive high on the 25th. Now they're going to be tired and now traveling to Seton Hall, a team that hasn't won in 5 games. They just played a pretty tough 5-game stretch where they lost to Providence by 6 on the away court. And now they're at home. And they're only losing, 2 numbers. I think if they do lose this game, I do think they cover the number. They have to play Butler, who's been playing much better lately, St. John's, Marquette, Creighton. They just played some really tough teams. And I really do think this is a great bounce-back spot for them to finally get another win. They have never lost more than 5 games in a row this season. And this Providence team is coming off an extreme high. Just seems like a fantastic spot here. You have the revenge angle. You have the hangover angle on Providence. You have the Seton Hall team that is due for a win. These are the 2 kind of bottom feeders in this Big East. So, give me Seton Hall. I might sprinkle the money line, but I'm definitely going to take the +4. You maybe want to hold off on this one. The line's already moved from +3.5 to +4 pretty early on. That usually is a signal that it might move to +5, +6, just because people are going to see the Seton Hall team and they just naturally bet against it. So, give me Seton Hall as the first game as home underdogs. All right, game number 2. We have South Carolina heading on the road to play Georgia. Now, I think this is a awesome price for a pretty solid Georgia team, mainly because of recency bias. This Georgia team, they're on a 4-game loss streak. They haven't looked nearly as good. And South Carolina has been playing it really tight against some really good teams. If you look at their most recent games, yes, they've lost. South Carolina, they have lost their last 7 games, but they kept it, 1-point game against Florida, 3-point game against Vanderbilt, 3-point game against Auburn. They covered the number against Alabama. They did get blown up by Mississippi State. which was really their only rough game. But then came at home and they kept Mississippi State but as a 5, like they only lost by 5. So you look at those, you're like, okay, this has been playing good. Georgia, they just took 4 losses, but against literally 3 of the top 5 teams in the nation. They lost to Tennessee, Auburn, Florida, and they lost to Arkansas, who was kind of due for a win anyway. But before that stretch, they've been doing really well. They shit on a Kentucky team by 13 at home. They've been a good Oklahoma team by 10. They lost to Mississippi on the road, but before that, they beat Grand Canyon by 5, Notre Dame by 21, St. John's by 3, tough close loss to Marquette. I really like this Georgia team. I think they're big, and I think they match up well against the South Carolina team. If you look at their individual splits, Georgia does play really well at home. They have the 25th best home advantage in college basketball. And the South Carolina team has really only played their best ball at home. On the road, they're not even rated as a top 100 team. And they typically don't really play too well against upper competition when they're on the road. It hasn't been a strength of theirs. And then if you look at their statistical matchups, this Georgia team, how do they like to score? They're big. They like to shoot near basket and get second opportunities. That's basically the only way that they score. And they have a favorable matchup in near basket, where they're 39th in the nation to South Carolina's 162nd. It's the thing that they defend the worst, is the paint. And they're going to find some success getting points off steals. And South Carolina is one of the best teams at defending their own boards. They are 3rd best, but I still think Georgia's going to be able to find some success because they are the 4th best offensively. So on the other side of the floor, the South Carolina team is not even a top 100 offense this year. If you look at how they like to score points, they typically rely on second chance opportunities as well. But Georgia defends their boards even better, 52nd in the nation to South Carolina's 107th. And they don't really shoot anything particularly often. They shoot threes, mid-range, and near basket, all of which Georgia defends well, especially when it comes to 3 points in near basket. So if we're going to be holding the South Carolina team to an inefficient shot that they don't take very often in mid-range, I think this is a fantastic spot for Georgia and a bounce-back spot at home to completely dominate the South Carolina team that I think is playing way over their head. So give me Georgia to cover this 7.5 home favorite number. All right, looking at game number 3, we have Toledo heading on the road to Ohio. Now, when I look at this matchup on paper, just pure model-wise, I have Ohio winning this game by 6. I think they are the better team, but obviously this Toledo team is no pushover. There are some things that this Toledo team does well that Ohio does not do well, particularly as it comes to free throw shooting. Ohio is a great free throw team. They're 45th in the nation in free throw percentage, but they won't nearly get to the line as often as Toledo, who shoots it not as well, basically 1% worse, but they will get to the line significantly more often, which I think is going to be the only thing that Toledo is able to do. But the main reason I love this Ohio team is that they are extremely consistent when they're playing at home. They shoot everything decently well. They're borderline top 100 offense, and they can shoot threes. They can shoot near basket. They can play offensively, get some points off steals. They can shoot mid-range shots. They are a super well-rounded offense, and this Toledo team is one of the worst defenses in college basketball. They're basically a bottom 300. They're ranked 294th in defense efficiency. I think Ohio's consistency and shot quality is going to allow them to really take over this game. Toledo, they'll have some success shooting as well. They're a better offense. They're top 100 offense, but Ohio's defense is slightly better, and Ohio does defend the paint decently well. So I think Toledo's going to have to take a lot of mid-range and threes, which is always a lot harder to do when you're on the road. And Toledo they don't shoot threes. They're 353rd in the nation in three-point attempts. So even though Ohio cannot defend the three to save them, I don't think that's a shot that this Toledo team likes to do. They're a pretty big team, and they're going to try to they're going to have to find success in the mid-range because their near basket is not efficient at all. So and again, second chance opportunities, they typically rely on that a lot. They're ranked 98th in potential quick points off of second opportunities, and Ohio is one of the better teams, top 80 at defending their own boards. So I love the spot for Ohio. Ohio is one of the best home teams in the nation. They have one of the best home advantages of any team. Um, and obviously, this Toledo team has been, you know, better on the road than they have been um, at home. They're one of the worst teams at home. This Ohio team is just so much better at home. They have the number 6 home advantage in college basketball. Um, I think that's going to be a deciding factor with such a short spread if this game comes push to shove. Furthermore, if you look at kind of individual splits, this Ohio team has been the better team just in general, especially in conference play. I think again, I'll always take consistency over skill, and this Ohio team is due for a lot of positive regression. Toledo's due for negative regression. I think this is a fantastic spot to back this Ohio team at home, especially given this line. I think it probably ends up moving to -3, -4 overnight. So give me Ohio to win this game by 2 at home. All right, game number 4, we have Akron heading on the road to play Northern Illinois. Now, I always like to pick one game where it's just a mismatch between an incredibly good team versus an incredibly bad team. Yesterday, I picked Southern Alabama, and they lost by 11 outright, so I'm a bit nervous. But I think the difference between these two teams is just too significant. Akron is a top 100 in offense and defense, and Northern Illinois is a bottom 300 in both offense and defense. If you look at their shooting matchups, Akron shoots a lot of threes, and they'll find some success in steals. And they're going to have the 665th best three-point percentage against an NIU team that is literally a bottom 5. Not bottom 5%, but a bottom 5 three-point defense. They are 357th in the nation at defending the 3. I think Akron is going to just shoot a lot of threes and have a ton of open looks. And points off steals. Akron is a top 50 team in getting points off steals, and NIU is 262 in turnovers. I think all of these compounding factors is going to allow this Akron team to play extremely fast. They're 20th fastest team in the nation. NIU also plays fast, so their offense is so bad that if they're going to be running up the floor to miss shots, Akron is only going to have more opportunities to just keep hucking up threes. I think they can pull away from this game extremely quickly in an extremely high-paced, fast game. On the other side, NIU, their offense ranked 354th in the league. All they do is also shoot threes, but they shoot threes at a significantly worse. They're just, it's going to be a harder matchup for them to shoot threes, and that's really all they're going to be able to do. They don't do anything well, genuinely. They are one of the bottom feeders in college basketball. Now, if you look at individual matchups between Akron and Ohio and Northern Illinois, in terms of individual power ratings, I just think I have Akron modeled to win this game by 26, and we're getting them at minus 15.5. Akron is 2-1 as away favorites. NIU 3-3 as home underdogs. If you look at the travel analysis, obviously NIU just came off a win a couple of days ago against Ball State, the first win in a long time. And this Akron team, when they go on the road to play good teams, they don't do well. They lost to Arkansas State, Milwaukee, and Princeton. Princeton game was extremely close. But the one game where they traveled to a awful bottom 300 team was Buffalo, and they beat them by 32. Again, if you look at these individual ratings, one thing I do like to look up is how these teams play against. Some teams play poorly. They drop their level down, but not Akron. If you look at their verse 201 plus rating, Akron is the 78th in the nation at playing against these bad teams. They absolutely love to blow out these bad teams. That's kind of one of the things that they love to do. And if you look at the other side, this Northern Illinois team, they seem to play much better against these top 100 teams. But the second they play a team outside the top 100 that's hungry, much hungrier, they are ranked 363rd. So I think this is an Akron team that loves to bully and beat up shitty teams. This NIU team can't handle when a team is playing at them at their full capacity, and I think Akron will be. This Akron team has been rolling. They're on a 6-win streak. Every time they've played a team outside of the top 300, they've crushed them. They beat Eastern Michigan by 24, Buffalo by 32, Let's see what else. They beat Jackson State by 18. Um, they beat Alabama State by 19. They beat, yeah, those are all like the teams that are just as bad as this Northern Illinois team. Northern Illinois, they'll win a game and then they'll go back to being dog shit. So I think they got their win. They're happy. They had a good little stretch there where they were keeping games close or winning, and now they're going to get absolutely clobbered by this Akron team. So give me Akron by a million, but I'll take them as the away favorites, as short 15.5-point favorites. Final game here, we got UNC heading on the road to play Pittsburgh. Now, I think this North Carolina team are frauds. I absolutely hate backing them. Every time I have, they screwed me. And any chance I can get to fade them, especially on the road, I'm going to do it. Now, this Pitt team, I have had some success betting them actually this year, but I haven't bet them in a while. And I think the best time to bet them is at home, where they have arguably one of the best home advantages in college basketball. They average over 88 points a game when they're playing at home. They absolutely dominate teams, and this North Carolina team has a really tough matchup here against a really strong Pittsburgh defense. Now, Pittsburgh's defense, outside the paint, outside the line, their threes and mid-range shots, they are not phenomenal. They're like a 150 to 200 defense, but they are great at defending the paint, and that's where North Carolina likes to shoot the most. They don't really shoot that many mid-range. They'll occasionally shoot threes, but they are ranked 9th in the percentage of their shots that are in the paint. Now, on the other side, this Pittsburgh team is ranked 30th in near basket percentage, so they defend the paint well. So I think North Carolina is going to have to hug up a lot of shots. They're not very good at shooting threes, so they're probably going to shoot more mid-range shots, where they're decent at. But again, I'm always someone that says if they're going to have to take mid-range shots, which they almost never take, we're happy with that because they're going to be further from the basket, probably going to get less second chance opportunities. They'll find some success getting points off steals. They might have some success getting free throws, but I think this Pitt team is actually just a better team than North Carolina, almost everywhere. Now, second spot, Pittsburgh. Their offense, 25th best in college basketball in offense efficiency. They're kind of the opposite. They don't really like to shoot that much in the paint. They're more of an outside range team. And UNC, solid defense in pretty much everywhere. They're not like elite at defending anything, but they defend everything in the top 100. But I do think just because of how this Pitt team has dominated any team that they play at home, I think they're going to have a lot of success here running up the score on this North Carolina team, while North Carolina is going to struggle in this extremely loud environment. If you look at the power ratings, at home, Pittsburgh is the 14th best team in college basketball. North Carolina, they don't change. They're 40th, whether they're at home or away. They have the number one home advantage in college basketball. This place is not easy to play in, and this North Carolina team that has not been playing well, I don't think this is a spot for them to get right. Now, Pittsburgh hasn't looked great in their last few games. North Carolina has looked decent. But this Pittsburgh team, when they play elite, like top 25 teams, they struggle. But right outside the top 25, when they play teams in their own sphere, they step it up. You could tell that they're not afraid of this competition. And I think this home court advantage is going to be huge. They had a little rough stretch there where they played some elite teams. They lost to Clemson, Louisville, Duke. But now they're back at home where this North Carolina team is going to be coming off probably a bit of a hangover after having an extremely intense game where 198 points were scored against Boston College. Probably going to be a little bit tired. And I just think this team sucks. They lost to a Wake Forest team by 1. They lost to Stanford. Yeah, they keep games close, but they lose to bad teams. And games are relatively close against bad teams as well. They almost lost to NC State. I just think Pitt's going to roll them here. I think this is a fantastic bounce back spot, and they're going to absolutely dominate them. They're going to get revenge for what North Carolina did to them in a previous season. Give me Pittsburgh as short 3.5-point favorites. All right, and bonus bets. I'm going to briefly talk about each of these games, not nearly as much as the other ones, but these are my other 4 games I'll be betting that are a bit slightly less confident. Kentucky versus Tennessee. This is just in my opinion, a fantastic matchup for Tennessee to defend. And Kentucky team as well that is probably going to have to try to match this extremely slow pace for Tennessee. Tennessee loves to dictate, especially at home. That's what they do. And so this Kentucky team is probably going to have to listen to that pace if they're going to want to have any chance to beat this Tennessee team. Because if you're trying to play too fast, Tennessee will punish you, and they will force you to turn the ball over. Now, the particular reason why I like this matchup is because both these teams are really good at defending the three, and they both also take a lot of threes. Now, the three ball is the number that runs up the score the most in college basketball. Kentucky shoots, of all their shots, they shoot the three the most. Out of all Tennessee shots, they shoot the three the most. And Tennessee has the number 1 ranked three-point defense, and Kentucky has the 11th ranked three-point defense. And Tennessee's not even a great three-point shooting team to start with. They're 150th in three-point percentage. I just think this is going to be a grueling game between arguably one of the best offenses, and a Kentucky team who's their defense isn't phenomenal, but they defend the thing that Tennessee likes to do the most. Both the teams defend their own glass decently well. They both don't turn the ball over a ton. I think it's going to be a grueling shot clock kind of game, like Tennessee loves, and in a tight SEC division where Tennessee wants to kind of lock in the number 1 seed. I do think this is going to be a slow game. So I do like the under 149. Game number 2, Bowling Green. This one's a little bit disgusting because if you look at the history between these two teams, between Bowling Green and Kent State, Kent has dominated, absolutely dominated. I think they've won 9 of the last 9 matchups, and they've only not covered once. But this Bowling Green team, I think, they've been okay this year. They're going to probably struggle to score, as they always do. But this Kent team, they're not really a phenomenal offense either. Like, Kent is more of a defensive team, and I think where it matters, I think Bowling Green is going to get a lot of free throws, and that's going to be the difference. Bowling Green is 152nd in free throw attempts. They're top 50 in free throw percentage. And Kent State, they're 321st in free throw attempts given up. They foul, they're a great defensive team, but they also foul way too much. And I think that will allow Bowling Green to just play for fouls all game. Kent State, who I don't think is a very deep team, is probably going to get into foul trouble. And I genuinely believe that will be enough, because Kent State's not going to score that often. Sure, BGSU is not a defensive powerhouse, but Kent is 280th in offensive efficiency. They don't shoot anything inside the top 200, and BGSU takes care of their own glass. So there won't be any free points. I do really think BGSU can keep this game close and cover the pretty significantly large 12.5 number as a weight team. So give me Bowling Green plus 12.5. Southern Indiana, very similar spot. These are two dog shit teams between Moorhead and Southern Indiana. I think they're just getting way too many points here. I have this game model as a 4-point win for Moorhead. I do think they're a slightly better team defensively. Offensively, they're about even. And because of that, I just think the Southern Indiana team, who plays pretty well on the road, is going to find a little bit of success here. They're a pretty solid free throw shooting team. I just think this number is way too big between two shitty teams in Ohio Valley. I think this is going to be a grueling game, and I like the points. And lastly, Dayton. I'm done fading Dayton. I've been trying to fade them a lot. I did win my last time I faded them, but I do think this Dayton team is just a better team than the St. Bonnie's team. Bonaventure, they are heading in the complete opposite direction. Dayton's finally figuring it out. St. Bonaventure, despite having one of the hottest starts in college basketball, has really, really regressed in the Atlantic 10 to the point where Dayton's about to pass them in the standings. Dayton just has played a significantly harder schedule, and they play really well when they're on the road. Bonnies, on the other hand, don't play well at home, and they've had a significantly easier schedule than this Dayton team. So I think Dayton, they had a tough schedule, they looked really bad, and now they're starting to play some less good teams, and they're starting to really find their groove. Now, the last time I faded Dayton is when they played Duquesne, and Dayton absolutely exploded that game because they had an amazing favorable matchup from three. And lately, Dayton has been hitting their threes. They're one of the hottest teams from the three-point line. And the Bonnies team cannot defend the three. They are just a bad three-point defense team. They're 335th in three-point percentage allowed. This Dayton team, they don't shoot that. They don't shoot a lot of threes before, if you look at their splits. But they're going to find success in threes. They're going to find success near basket. This Bonnie team, who mostly only shoots mid-range shots, are going to have to play against a Dayton team who's ranked 15th in mid-range defense. I just think this is an extremely tough matchup for St. Bonnie's, playing against a Dayton team who's just absolutely rolling with momentum. If you look at their most recent games, I guess let's look at their last 10 games. Dayton has won their last 3, and St. Bonnie has lost their last 3. They lost 5 of the last 6. Dayton went through a little bit of a rough stretch where they lost to Massachusetts, George Washington, and George Mason, but I think they locked back in, and they beat 3 decent teams in a row. Teams that I find are not as good as St. Bonnie, but St. Bonnie they lost to Duke by 18, a team that Dayton just beat by 20. So I think the 3-point is going to be too much for them to handle, and Dayton's going to win this game as a away favorite. So those are the 9 games that I like for tomorrow. If there's any other additional bets that I end up betting, you can find them in my Discord or on my spreadsheet bolded, which are both down below in the description. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I really appreciate all the support. Thank you.